Hello viewers, very warm good evening from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. You're watching QTV. My name is Aliou Sise and we're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. Today is the final debate for the candidates who are contesting for next Saturday's parliamentary election, and we are wrapping up the debate with Banjul Central Constituency in the Banjul administrative area. And in Banjul, we have Babukar Mbouch, who is contesting under the PDY's ticket, is already in the studio. We also have Lyndon B. Johnson, well, not the former U.S. president, but Lyndon B. Johnson of Banjul Central, who is contesting as an independent candidate, is also here in the studio. The other contestants are Mohammed Ndao, who is contesting under PPP. By the way, he is the sitting MP and the only candidate put up by the PPP party for the parliamentary election. We also have Aminata TB Jara, who is contesting under Gambia for All Party, Mamadou Cherno Jallo, United Democratic Party. We have Alaji Jah, who is contesting as an independent candidate, and Abdullah Njai, also contesting as an independent candidate. We have reached out to all these candidates, but knowing that today is the last day of campaign, they have chosen not to be here, but to focus on their campaign. But we are glad to have these gentlemen here, Mr. Mbouch and Lyndon B. Johnson, just to discuss about their policies and programs as they, prepare to represent their people in Parliament. Well, Banjul Central constituency is the biggest in terms of the number of registered voters. It has 8,371 registered voters as of the last presidential election held on 4 December. Well, in 2017, we saw the incumbent Mohammed Ndao of PPP won that election after he got 1,852 votes, and in that particular election he was challenged by the late Abdullah Sen of APRC, Ibu Jang Independent, Ibrahim Pesenjai of UDP, Hadijatu and Hadijatu Fops of the Gambia Democratic Congress Party. Well, before we get into the debate proper, let me just remind our guest here what the rules are as far as this debate is concerned. Well, like you already know, the debate shall last for 1 hour 30 minutes. The debate shall include breaks where necessary. Each of the debaters will be given 2 minutes to make an opening statement. The same applies for the closing remarks. Candidates can ask each other questions and answer the moderator's follow-up. Debaters are to address each other by Mr., Mrs. and Miss. Well, today is going to be Mr. followed by the surname. The questions are independently prepared by QTV Gambia. There will be no rebuttals of the opening and closing statement, but then there will be a 1 minute rebuttals for each of the candidates to counter any of the claims made by his opponent. There will be a 10 minutes phone-in call for the people of Banjul Central constituency to call and, if possible, ask questions to one of the candidates. And at the end of the debate, we expect both candidates to acknowledge each other with a handshake or an elbow bump, just to acknowledge each other. Like I said, once again, you're watching QTV. We're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station. We are also streaming on our different social media platforms on Facebook and YouTube, and also on Q Radio on 103.3. Mr. Mbouch and Mr. Johnson, welcome to the debate. Like I said, we will start by allowing each of you 2 minutes to make an opening statement. I will start with Mr. Mbouch. You are contesting on the PDIS in 2 minutes, an opening statement. And who is Babukar Mbouch?
My name is Babukar Mbouch, born and raised in Banjul. Did my primary school in Banjul, Kampama School. Also went to Chairman Primary School. From there to Muslim High School. Then moved to Europe for higher education, both Norway and Sweden. Then came back to the Gambia, started a company called B&B Solutions, specialized in networking security. But because of the conditions at that time, we had to close the company. Then I went into farming with a great mentor and a brother who passed away, Dr. Omar Toure. Did farming for a number of years. And recently I started another company with a friend of mine. Now we import medicine. That is Babukar Mboj.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babukar Mboj, who is contesting under PDOIS, commonly known as DOI, in Banjul Central Constituency. And we also have, like I said, Lyndon B. Johnson, well, certainly not the former U.S. president and the former vice president, but Lyndon B. Johnson is an independent candidate contesting in the Banjul Central Constituency. Mr. Johnson, in 2 minutes,
thank you very much.
Who is Lyndon B. Johnson?
Thank you very much. I am so glad to be here. Good afternoon and a warm afternoon to the viewers out there. My name is Lyndon B. Johnson. I was born in Banjul, grew up in Banjul, started my nursery school at SOS, Hamad Maina Nursery School, then proceeded to Backwater Primary School. Then from Backwater Primary School, I proceeded to St. Augustine's Junior, commonly called Pajuf. Then from there, I proceeded to St. Augustine's High School, where I did my grade 12 examination. Then from there, I got enrolled at GTTI, where I started my national diploma in law. At the same time, I have taught for 1 year at Old Union Primary School. Finally, I am at the University of the Gambia doing my law.
Thank you very much, Lyndon B. Johnson. They are just telling us who is Lyndon B. Johnson. Now, let's now get to the reason why we're here. I mean, Mr. Mboj, I will start with you. You are contesting, you are one of the many contestants, the contenders in Banjul Central Constituency. I want to know, why are you contesting? For example, what are the issues in your constituency which perhaps have inspired you to want to represent your people in Parliament?
The issues in Banjul Central are many. As I have worked with Usman Silla, I was part of his campaign team, 2017. And we went through the whole process. I was even with him when he started Crab Island. Then after that, we looked at Banjul Central. And when you look at Banjul Central, actually there's nothing in Banjul Central apart from few nursery schools. The kind of representation we have in Banjul Central is basically non-existent. And there are no programs. We don't even have playground for kids, no facilities for the youth, no jobs. Basically, there is nothing in Banjul Central. And me being part of Banjul Central, I took up the challenge to see that at least we have to give back to Banjul Central. And one of the ways we can do it is through representation at the Parliament, which is to lobby in Parliament so that at least some of these programs we can have in Banjul Central.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboj. I'll come back to you. Let me now bring in Lyndon here. Why are you contesting?
Thank you very much. Well, I think the reason for my candidature, it's very unique, I would say. Some elderly people way back before the presidential election approached me and told me, well, Johnson, you know what? We've been observing with keen interest, and we've realized that your PR with the people is very good, right? And we don't doubt your educational background. That is, you studying law and all that. So we were thinking, what would you think about us putting you up as a candidate in the forthcoming election so that you would run for office? Well, I told them, well, it's a good initiative, and I don't think I could say yes now. Please allow me to do consultation with my people. So I started doing the consultation and realized at the end of the day that all the consultation I did was positive. That was how the inspiration started. But looking at the National Assembly and looking at my constituency in Banjul, I think Banjul Central deserves a better representation in the House. And I believe in the skills and expertise that I have, that if I am given the opportunity to be there, maybe most of their concerns, most of what they want to be part of the laws that are going to govern us for the next 5 years would be a thing of the past. That is what brought up the inspiration. Thank you.
I mean, you talked about some of the issues in your constituency. You talked about your constituency deserving a better representation. I mean, you said you have consulted. I mean, there was further consultation before you finally declare your intention to run in this Parliament. I want to know, why do you choose to run as an independent? There are many political parties, 18 registered political parties in this country. Why independent?
Thank you very much. The reason why I am running on an independent ticket, I think it's unfortunate, I would say, because I belong to a party and was hoping, to run on our party's ticket. But unfortunately, the party that I belong to don't put up a candidate in my constituency. That is Banjul Central. And like I said, it started from adult people that approached me and told me of me running as a parliamentarian. So when that happened, they called me again and said, Johnson, you know what, we've heard what had happened, and we are telling you that we put you up, right? You were not there for yourself. We put you up, and we would still want you to go further. That was why I decided to move on an independent ticket. We all know running on our party's ticket, it's more favorable in terms of financial aid and all that. But definitely, I think the House is not about belonging to a party that would make you a good parliamentarian. I think if the people have the trust and confidence in you, I think definitely that could be the bedrock on which you could step on and move forward. So definitely, I am not running on a party's ticket, but I am moving on an independent ticket.
Good. I mean, you said, unfortunately, the party that you were a part of didn't put up a candidate in your constituency. Which party is this?
It's NPP.
Interesting. But an NPP is backing the incumbent.
Exactly. Well, I think I would even want to make that clarification because we've realized we lived in Banjul and we've applied to the party, right, for consideration, and we were told to wait. But unfortunately, as we speak now, the party hasn't even written back to say, Johnson, it's unfortunate that so and so happened, and we are not putting up a candidate in Banjul Central, right? So as we wrote our application, it's still lying before them with no consideration until we had to find out from the media houses, from the news outlet, that Banjul Central NPP is not putting up a candidate. So that was what prompted us to move on, because we thought belonging to a party, we should give the party the first priority, right? But notwithstanding, we had our options, we had our plan Bs in the event that it didn't work out, and we all saw what happened, because what happened is they didn't put up a genuine reason to my own observation, because they said, well, they are giving back, they are to those parties that helped them during the presidential. And if you looked at a constituency, right, if you looked at a parliamentarian, I think we Gambians should start to think that parliamentarians should not be linked to parties. It's about your constituency, and people must have had trust and confidence in the person that they want to run, that they want to give their votes for. So I think with the support that I had then, I was at a funny position. That was, people thought I was going to be the candidate, and unfortunately it didn't happen. So there was a lot of concern, a lot of calling.
But one will ask, if you are a genuine member of your political party, which is a National People's Party, why didn't you just go with the suggestion of your party? The decision of your party to back the incumbent? Why do you go solo, in this case independent?
Thank you very much. That's a very good question that I would like to clarify. The reason being that I belong to a political party does not mean that I have to do what is not right, right? I believe in what the people actually wants. I am a citizen of this country, right? And I have the right to belong to any political party, provided that I see that the interest of the people is observed at all costs. Looking at this election, I think they didn't look at what the people actually wanted, because if you looked at before they arrived at the decision of putting him up as a candidate, they had a lot of interviews, right? And at the highest level, I wasn't there, what my representatives were there, they had a problem in identifying who they wanted to put forward, right? And people were disgruntled there. Because what happened is when they asked them of how do you see Banjul Central, they said that, well, we don't have a problem in Banjul North because we have a candidate who is unopposed. We don't have a problem in Banjul South. We have a candidate who is unopposed, but we have a problem in Central. And the problem is we have a boy called Johnson, whom the people of Banjul Central want. They kind of looked at whether
yes. Okay. Now let me just come in here, Lyndon. Let me now come back to Mr. Mboch. I mean, earlier on you talked about what you said. I mean, you said there is nothing. You said nothing is in Banjul Central apart from few nursery schools. You also talk about, you said, I mean, the lack of, representation. I mean, I just want to know, how do you intend to change this, the issue of representation? You said there is non-representation. How do you intend to change that?
The issue of representation, the only way to change it is to make sure that we don't have the same thing as we have already. Because if you have an MP who is not doing the job, the only way you can have a better representation is by getting rid of him and bring somebody else. And I believe that I can be that person, I can do a better job because I'm well versed within the structures of Gambia, how government works, and at the same time the business sector. And I also have been part of a political party since I was a kid. So I believe that I have the will and the intention to give people a better representation.
I mean, you talk about your experience working. I mean, I just want you to share with us, I mean, what do you think, or can you give us, I mean, the job description of a National Assembly member?
Okay. National Assembly member, their job is to create laws, oversight, and representation. Okay, I have been part of CPAC, Consumer Protection Association Gambia. And the law, the Consumer Act, actually, me and Dr. Toure, we are representing Consumer Protection Association in creating that law. And today, that law is still in existence. So on that side, I can say that yes, I have done something that National Assembly is really doing by creating laws for the benefit of the people. When it comes to other functions, oversight is basically to make sure that the executive do what they are supposed to do. You act as a watchman. I have started 2 companies, and everybody knows that to have a company, a running, functioning company, you must act as an oversight person to see that everything works accordingly.
Yes. Let me now go back to London. I mean, exactly. I mean, you've talked about, you said, the unfortunate incident that happened in your constituency. Could you just share with us your experience? What have you done in the past that makes you think, you know what, I'm the right person for that seat in Parliament?
Well, thank you very much, and I think I would definitely love to answer that. Well, like I said, I live in Banjul, and I still live in Banjul, and my PR with the people of Banjul is cordial. I have involved in a lot of youth activities, ranging from different social developments in my ward, which I think I get recognized by. One of those, we normally clean the gutters time to time that we realize it's blocked and the water is not flowing. We sometimes clean the streets and all that. So I think that is one aspect. And if you live in Banjul and you are Banjulian, that is something that we, the people of Banjul, want. That is, we like our other activities, social activities like hunting and all that. And I am part of those 2. So I think that has actually made me so well known and well talked about in Banjul, because the youths see me as somebody that they think I could be that good representative that they deserve. And looking at some of the youths got to realize about my educational background of recent, because I am somebody who thinks, you know, together we can work and not individually. So that has totally not disclosed the nature of my job to anybody that lives around my area, because they see me going to work and they don't know what I do. But I think of recent, they get to know that I read law and I work with the court, and definitely they said, yes, Johnson could be that better representative. So I think that has also, made me popular and well talked about in Banjul.
I mean, it's one thing to have the experience. Mm-hmm. It is another thing to have the skills to be a good National Assembly member. What do you think are the skills that you require that you need?
Thank you very much. I think me being that better representative for my people, to me it requires you having a legal background, which is very, very important, because you talk about the House, it's where laws are promulgated, and we know laws should reflect the yearnings and aspirations of the people. And I think going to law school has actually given me that flair, where I think if I get to the House, those laws that they are going to put in place, that is going to govern us for the next 5 years, we would have the opportunity to scrutinize and see whether they have to actually reflect the yearnings and aspirations of our people.
But are you telling me that one has to be a lawyer to be a good National Assembly
That's
member?
not what I'm saying. Okay. It's not a coincidence that you're talking about the National Assembly and you're talking about a lawyer. So I think it relates. Looking at that alone.
No, we're talking about laws.
Exactly.
I mean, not the lawyers.
Exactly. So,
we're talking about laws.
so I am trying to relate that for people to understand that if you have that legal background, in the National Assembly, we don't expect to have only lawyers. We have different fields. Yeah, but I think having the right candidates in the right places would definitely help. We can say, we've seen the past National Assembly member, we've seen some people that were so vibrant. And if you looked at their background, we know they studied law. So I think...
but not all of them.
No, not all of them. That's what I said.
Especially in the Gambia here, most of the most outstanding names are not lawyers.
That is why I said some. So we need a composition of all. You know, we are not trying to be selfish here by disregarding others. No, that's not what we're saying. But we need people we need people to be in the right place in some instances, and not having square holes not having round pegs in square holes.
So basically, you will agree with me that one doesn't have to be a lawyer to be a good National Assembly member.
That's correct. That's correct. But what I'm saying is it could be an advantage, because if you looked at the National Assembly, you're talking about promulgation of laws. So if you don't have a background, you don't have an idea of how laws should be, what kind of law should you put in place for your people, I think it's definitely going to be harmful. It's going to be more dangerous than having somebody who has a legal background in law, by making sure that those laws.
Let's now look at the roles of a National Assembly member. What will you do?
Well, I think first of all, I'll provide that better representation that my people deserve. How am I going to do that? It's by making sure that their yearnings and aspirations reflect in the laws that we are going to put in place. To go further, if you looked at our constituency in Banjul Central...
Let's deal with one at a time.
That's what we are doing. I'm still on that one. Okay. If you looked at Banjul Central as a constituency, there are so many issues that we think should be before the House for consideration. And I believe it's only me that can be able to take those things there. When we talk about Banjul Central, we talk about our housing problems in Banjul Central. We've realized, we've done close studies, and we've done consultation with the people. We've realized that in Banjul Central, we have a concern that is talked about in the homes, in the VUs, in the offices. But what can we do to make those things to a reality? That is fine. One, if you looked at most of the properties that are sold in Banjul, they've been transformed into stores, right? And the people of Banjul Central, you go to streets, you see them right on the walls. We don't want stores. We don't want stores. But I normally ask them this question. That is, let us go back to our regulations and see.
But in this case, I mean, what sort of a law will you propose in Parliament to address it?
That's where I'm coming to. What we think I asked them, let's go back to our laws that we have. Let's look at the Constitution. There is no section in the Constitution that you can say clearly states that you can't buy a property in Banjul Central and not construct it into a store. You looked at the Acts of Parliament, there is nowhere. You looked at the bylaws, there is no section in the bylaws that clearly states that you cannot buy a property in Banjul and construct it into a store. So if at all the people of Banjul Central really wants that to be settled, I think they need people like myself that will table a bill before the National Assembly and sort for prayers. And by doing that, then it's going to be a reality that people of Banjul could say, you cannot buy a house in Banjul and construct it into a store.
Yes, before I get back to Mr. Mboch, you talk about bringing a bill to the Parliament. What is this bill going to say?
Right. Thank you very much. The bill is going to say, I could explain that in detail. The bill is going to state.
You have only 2 minutes, remember?
Wow. Oh, yeah, right. Well, the bill is going to state the reason why. It's going to state the reason why we are coming up with that. Provided we've done our consultation with the people of Banjul. Provided we've also done research with physical plan to get to know what is Banjul meant for. Is it meant for commercial? Is it residential? Then we would have all those bills or all those documents put together and present that to the National Assembly for consideration. And we are going to go further. That is, if at all, we know that, yes, we are going to do that in National Assembly. But is it going to be a thing of the past? At that instant, we can't tell.
But if I get you right, it seems as we speak, I mean, you have no position because, I mean, you really have to do all the research and engagement. Let me bring in Mr. Mboch. I saw you wanted to come in.
No, I'm just surprised that it seems like my colleague or Mr. Johnson doesn't know what National Assembly is supposed to do, even though he is going to be a lawyer. So, yeah, the issue here is the National Assembly doesn't need to create laws for everything. You have departments that can create regulations. The physical department, that's their job. They should create regulation. They can do something we call zoning. They can zoning, it means that you can decide, the physical department can decide which area should be for commercial, should be for residential, and stores, what kind of stores you should build. And even if you build the stores, is it going to be stores downstairs and residential upstairs? Those are the issues that
are you telling me a National Assembly member cannot introduce a law?
Yes, they can introduce a law.
Okay.
And when we make law, we don't make law for specific areas, small areas. We make laws for the whole country. That's the job of a National Assembly member. Because each geographical area is different and their needs are different. When you create one law for everybody and you want to implement the same thing in Serekunda or in Birkama or in Basse, it doesn't work. In this case, in Banjul, the problem is the physical planning. They are the ones responsible for structures. They are the ones responsible for how Banjul should look like.
I mean, you talked about, perhaps, you cannot introduce a law that will just address a particular area, for example, Banjul. But in your case, if you were to introduce a private member's bill that's going to address some issues that are in Banjul, but also is common everywhere in this country, what will it be?
Right now, something that I really want to do, if I go to the parliament, that is, we should speak our local languages to start with. That is a law that affects everybody. Because of we don't speak our local languages, the people who we are representing doesn't understand how we are representing them. Because most of the people, they don't speak English. That is a fact. But that doesn't mean
English
that...
is an official language.
Yes, that doesn't mean that the people going to National Assembly should not speak English or should not be able to speak English. They should be very fluent in English because of all the documents are in English.
Do you speak all the local languages in this country, Mr. Mboch?
No, I don't. But I can assure you there are 3 local languages. We can start with those 3. And those 3, anybody who is a Gambian at least can speak one of them.
Are you just speculating or just assuming? You are just assuming in this case.
No, I'm not assuming. We are all Gambians. We all know each other. If you take Wolof, Fula, and Mandinka, find somebody who cannot speak one of these languages in this country.
Johnson, what do you think? Yes, I think I would definitely want to comment because it seems Mr. Mboch don't understand the facts. He don't know what the role of a parliamentarian is. So I'll urge him to come to me so that I'll show him the light. Because if you talked about a parliamentarian, your representation in the House is to make sure you represent your constituency and the nation at large. Because it's not the nation that is electing you, but it's your constituency that is electing you. And you have to make sure that those things that they want to be part of the laws be put in place. If Mr. Mboch is telling us that you cannot be able to come up with some private bills, I think he doesn't understand the facts and he needs to go and make findings. Let me just finish. Well, what I am saying, I am going to stand by that. That is, I am there to represent my constituency, my people, as a constituency and the nation at large. When I get into the House, some of the problems that my people feel that should be part of the laws, I would make sure that I put it before the House, knowing very well that putting it before the House doesn't mean approval. It is subject to it being debated on, and it's subjected to it being voted for. If it is voted in for, yes, we would definitely appreciate it as a constituency that you can't buy a property in Banjul and not construct it into a store. So I think that is something that is so pertinent with the people of Banjul, and you can see it. It's evident. It's evidential. You can see it written on the walls. We don't want store. We don't want store. But do we have regulations that are regulating that? I think it's a concern for the people of Banjul Central, and they would definitely want me to be their parliamentarian so that I can make sure those things are acting on the past.
Mr. Mboch?
Okay, I think trying to ridicule somebody for something you really don't know about or have no idea of how to do it is really ridiculous. Okay, if I'm elected, what a parliamentarian should do outside of his functions in parliament, you can go and try to see how best we can lobby. You can bring in social security. Instead of these families selling their properties, the homes, so that they could be turned into stores. That's where the problem is. You can lobby with Social Security, UN Habitat, even the council, BCC. Then you see if you can come into a partnership with the families so that they don't sell the properties in the first place. And they could build it, the families will live there to avoid the migration we have in Banjul, so that in 10, 15 years, they could pay back the whole amount used to build the property. That's how you develop an area. Because if we keep on making laws for everything, at the end of the day, we will start making laws even for coffin. So these are the problems. We should concentrate on the problems, not try to regulate everything. What I meant by that, physical planning, they are responsible for structures, buildings, everything in Banjul. They should create a kind of regulations, and I'm sure there are already regulations of what kind of structures should be built in Banjul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboj. Yes.
Yes, I want to rebut. I think Mr. Mboj don't understand the issues. That is to say, right, if you're talking about physical planning as an institution, physical planning is governed by regulations. Take what he's saying out of the regulations that I'm talking about. It's impossible. So it goes round, it goes up and down. He is still not going to say it, but he knows there should be regulations that will be put in place so that physical planning would know what their functions are, and which I believe is with the physical planning. Physical planning in this whole thing of social security, it doesn't make any difference to the job of a National Assembly member. A National Assembly member, remember, your primary role is to promulgate laws. Laws that physical planning would use as a yardstick, and laws that social security will use as a yardstick. So if we are taking this out of regulations, what do we have then? Are we just going to tell them, well, you know what, we want you to come and do that and that? Physical planning know what their roles and responsibilities are. We are talking about bringing up laws that is going to cement, that is going to make sure that the aspiration of the people.
What my colleague is doing here is supposed to trying to tie me to something that actually has no relevance in this debate. We are here to see how best we can serve our people, not to go back and forward of issues. Because what he is trying to explain here, let's take his background. He said he's popular. That's his yardstick. He also said that he was very good in cleaning the gutters. They're doing that in Banjul. If that is the only reason why you're going to Parliament, then you are going to the wrong place. You should go to the council. You should be a councillor instead, because that's the job of a councillor. So in this case, we should focus more on Parliament. How can we change the lives of our people? I think the debate should take that direction instead of we going back and forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I wanted to go further with my.
Yeah, just summarize it. Summarize it, because you want to go into another thematic area, which is about the.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to do, because I think I've exhausted. And,
Good.
And
now, I want to talk about the issue of the constituency services. I mean, you said you are very popular. You said you've been involved in cleaning the gutters in Banjul Center and all that. But what other constituency services will you introduce or will you provide if you are elected?
Well, I think knowing your constituency matters a lot. Because when it talks about representing your constituency, right? When I was doing those things, I never thought I was going to sit in this platform today to talk about them. You know, they actually happen out of our goodwill and out of our good citizenship. That's why we did that. Yeah, but you asked the question saying, what have you done for your community? So I just name a few. You understand what I mean? What we are saying is, if at all we are giving the opportunity to go in the house, we've made an assessment and know the problems of our people, especially the youths, and we have a package for them. Right, and the youths believe that, you know, they can trust in some of us because they believe we're of the same generation.
You're still not answering my question.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know whether you don't understand what I mean by the constituency services, or do you really understand what is constituency services?
I do understand. I do understand.
So
yes. What
services will you provide?
What service I will provide? Well, if I get in there, I'll make sure that we have. Can you rephrase the question? Let me understand. What service? As in what?
Constituency. For example, an office for people to access you.
Okay.
And have a definite day where you go out and meet your people.
Right. Okay, that's what you meant. Right. Okay. When I get into office, the first thing that I'm going to do is to create an office. It's part of my policies, it's part of my programs, because I think accessibility is important, especially if you're representing people. So when I get into office, the first thing that I'll do is I'll create an office in Banjul Central where I could have people coming to meet me, telling me of their problems, telling me of their concerns, telling me of their feelings, telling me of what they think Banjul Central should be like in the next 5 years. And also making sure that I would have session meetings, because I think our people definitely need to be educated. That is, we're having a sort of symposiums where I will talk to the people, telling them of their rights, telling them of telling them of what they are to do as good citizens, and also bearing in mind that it is them that we're representing, and anything that we do has to reflect what they want. I think we would definitely want to do that, and we'll have symposiums where I would invite them and talk on issues relating to national development.
Mr. Moch, how about you? Constituency services?
Actually, particularly when he talks about constituency services, for a moment I thought that he was a DOI member, because everything he says, that's what I did together with Usman Silla, because I was part of Usman Silla's team, and the first thing we did was to open an office. He is the first one to open an office in Banjul, ever, since 1965. It has never happened before.
But Elijah Silla did, didn't he? In
no,
Banjul
there was no office for anybody.
There was no office for Elijah Silla, the former National Assembly member for Banjul North constituency?
Ask around. An office specially for the NAM. Usman Silla was the first one. A functional office. And
what else?
Apart from that, me and Usman Silla, we have done it so many times. Before they go to National Assembly, we always go have meetings in all the wards, in all the 3 wards, and ask people what they want us to take to the National Assembly. And after the National Assembly, we also come back and have the same meetings, with the same people, and explain to them what we brought from the National Assembly. We have done that. And for me, I'm not only going to stop there. I will also go around talking to youths, trying to encourage them about skills, because there is already a skill center in Banjul. And I was part of the team from the beginning. And we need to expand that skill center, not only for them to have skills, but the biggest problem we face in Banjul, even most of the kids, some of the kids who have applied to the school, we have seen that they cannot meet the requirements because of their educational background. Most of the educational background is very poor. The question is, how can we help these kids by maybe giving them extra classes, night schools, even for petty traders? How can we help them in accounting classes? Those are the kind of things that you can help the people of Banjul Central with.
Yes, let me now go back to Lyndon. I mean, when you talk about National Assembly, you talk about representation, you talk about legislation, you talk about oversight functions. I mean, what do you understand when you talk about oversight function, in this case, holding the government accountable? What are the tools?
Thank you very much. I think that is one of the main roles of a parliamentarian, that is oversight function. And if we talk about oversight function, we all know that in every institution, government institution, or the government, it's comprised of 3 organs, that is the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And we know they are independent bodies, and we also know that they can serve as checks and balances on each other. I think that is where the name oversight comes from. My role as a parliamentarian, if I am elected, I would make sure that government sticks to the laws as ascribed in our constitution, by making sure that whatever it's for the government, be for the government, in the sense that we all know the Constitution empowers the president to get up and make some pronouncement. That is, I could give you a clear example. That is, he could wake up today and say he is going to impose a curfew. And if you ask him, Mr. President, where do you get that from? Those powers from, he will tell you, go to the Constitution section, so and so gives me those powers to do that without giving reasons. That we know very well. He has the powers. But we also know that, for example, if the president intends to assimilate Gambia and Senegal, our laws clearly state that the president cannot sit in the State House and make those pronouncements. What he has to do is he has to write a bill, and the bill comes to Parliament. It will be debated on. The people that are concerned will be told what the bill is. At the end of the day, if the bill is not, if they don't come to an agreement at the House, then they would have to call for a short election, and that indicates that the president don't have powers. It is us that have the powers to accept a certain thing. So if there it happened, and majority of the people votes for yes in a referendum, then those bills will be part of the law, thereby showing that the president don't have the powers to make certain pronouncement. Instead, it has to be in consultation of the people. So we would make sure that those laws, as per the constitution of the land, are looked at whether the president has actually applied the laws to the latter. Also looking at other function. That is, we all know that every year the president comes to the House. Every year he comes.
As we speak, how are these things done in Parliament? Do you have any idea?
Yes, I have ideas as to how they are done in Parliament. That is, it has to start from a bill, right? If the president writes a bill on that, it has to come to the Parliament, and the bill be shared among the parliamentarians. They will go for first reading, second reading, third reading, and committee stage. Then, before it comes out to the people to vote, and after the people vote for that, then it has to go back to the president for assent, which is called the presidential assent. Then there it's part of the laws of the land. So I definitely know the process as to where it starts till where it ends. What I'm saying is, if at all we are into that office, we will make sure those kind of bills, before they are passed into law, they will have to go through those processes to make sure that at the end of the day, whatever that comes out of the bill, the people, the Gambian would appreciate those laws, because their inputs will be seen in the law.
It seems you're taking us through the different stages of how a bill is enacted, the first reading, the second reading, the third reading, committee stage, and all that. I mean, my question is the tools. What are the tools that they use, I mean, to hold the government accountable?
I don't understand. I don't understand that. What are the tools? What tools?
No, what are the tools? I mean, the tools that the Parliament use to hold the government accountable. For example, asking questions during the preliminaries.
I really don't.
Or during the committee stage.
What are the tools?
Yeah.
I don't understand that question. I really don't understand. What are the tools? As in how?
Mr. Mo, do you understand? What are the tools that National Assembly members use to hold the government accountable?
I have an idea, but we let him answer that first.
No, it seems he doesn't understand the tools, because he's just telling us through how bills are enacted. That's different from how you hold government accountable. For example, during the debate, during plenary debates, yeah.
Yes.
And committee stages as well.
Well, what needs to be done? You need to question. You need to question. Why do they think we should approve those bills? If at all it's a bill, why do they think we should approve it? And why do they even have the insight from? What benefits does it have on the lives of the people? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. You have the opportunity to question and answer, right? And thereby making sure that those bills actually reflect the yearnings and aspirations of the people. So I think if I get into the House, I did not understand that question, but now I am getting to know. If I get into the House, it's an open field where you would come and tell us why you think we should approve those bills. And there we would be able to tell you why we think we shouldn't. So I think it's going to be a form of a conversation, which is going to be based on question and answers.
Well, before we get to the question between the two of you, I want to bring in Mr. Mbocha. Yes, Mr. Mbocha, it seems you wanted to add something.
This is why I've been saying all along that National Assembly members need help, expert help, and they should be provided with expert help in different areas, because nobody is an all-rounder.
And that's why they have the subject matter specialist attached to all these committees.
Yes. Yeah, we have that. But I think that even at the office of the NAM, there should be an independent expert help who will help him do research and things like that, because that would make his job easier so that he can question things. Yeah, for example, let's say that we want to create a law that nobody should have more than 4 kids in the Gambia for a certain reason. For me, the first thing I would do is to look at, if you have that law, I would talk to somebody who's a specialist in population growth and all these things, agriculture, all of those things, to see what is the problem in the next 10 years, in the next 50 years, in the next 20 years. That is how you should think. Not only the actual moment of the heat of the moment, but you should think the effects, the cons and the pros of this law in the next 5-10 years. Yeah, those are the things that really you need a team, expert team in different areas to help you with.
Yeah, viewers, you reminded you're still watching QTV, and we're broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue, just behind the Q7 building. My name is Aliou Cisse, and today it's the final debate, and then it is Banjul Central Constituency in the Banjul administrative area. And in the studio, I have Babukar Mbodj, who is contesting on the PDIS party, and Lyndon B. Johnson, an independent candidate. We will now allow you a few minutes just to ask each other question, if you have any. Lyndon or Mr. Mbodj, if you have any question that you want to ask each other?
Not really. Actually, I think he's here to tell the people what he really wants to do. And the people will have the opportunity to ask him the questions, because the people are the voters. So I think it will be fair enough for him to tell the people. But nevertheless, if he says anything that I don't agree with, so I will come in and I'll tell him what I think.
I mean, before we get into the local languages, there are two issues, key issues as we speak in this country, which is a concern for every Gambian. The issue of the increase in the cost of living is increasing, and the issue of road accidents in this country. I just want to find out from both of you. I mean, if you are elected, I mean, what sort of law will you introduce to help address these concerns? Cost of living and the issue of road accidents in this country. Yes, Mr. Mbodj?
Okay. Both of them is a matter of we don't have any plans. Since 1965, we don't plan for tomorrow. Our government acts like a kind of I don't know how to say it. But
yes, I mean, already you said there was no plan. I just want to know, if you are elected, what sort of a law will you introduce to help address these concerns? It's not about what has gone wrong, but what will you do?
Okay. What we
as a lawmaker?
As a lawmaker is to consult people why our roads are so narrow. How do we build our roads? What kind of a law can we make to make sure that the standards, the Standards Bureau, can we have laws that regulate standards? Because we know the problem. One of the problems is the roads are narrow, the construction is not good. But what standards do we need? Those are the laws you need to create. But you have to consult with the Standards Bureau and the Roads Authority.
How about the cost of living?
The cost of living, Gambia has only one choice. We either start producing or we perish. There is no other way out. Because we cannot live on other people feeding us every time. We have to start producing. And we have to start now.
And how will you make this happen as a lawmaker?
As a lawmaker, what we can do is to make sure that the Ministry of Agriculture is well financed. And farmers, we should make sure that the money intended for farmers will also go to farmers.
Yeah, but if you talk about ensuring that the agriculture sector is well financed, I mean, for me, it is one of the most highest financed sector in this country, from Jawara's time to the current regime.
And it's one of the most corrupt also. So the farmers are not seeing actually the money meant for them. Let me give you some example, which I know is for a fact. Most of these NGOs, if you ask them how much is really going to the farmers, most of the money goes to logistics, vehicles, meetings, and other areas. But how much is going to the farmers? That is the question.
So what kind of a law will you introduce to ensure that, I mean, you can say maybe 50% or 60% of those funds reach the farmers?
I cannot say that right now. There should be a consultation on with the farmers to know exactly what do they need, farming implements, for example, seeds, fertilizers, and all those things.
Wonderful. Johnson,
yes,
cost of living, yes, road accidents.
Yes, I think I'll have a different view regarding that. When you talk of, I'll start with road accident. In my own perspective, I think there are regulations that are put in place in this country for someone to be entitled to drive a vehicle. That is, first of all, you need to get a license. But getting a license, I think we've abused it a lot. That is, some people who don't go to driving school to go and learn how to drive. but instead they would be issued with driver's license, which I think it's one of the main causes of most of these road accidents. Because of recent, if you looked at it, I think I read one, I read a judgment today on the newspapers, that clearly shows that there was an accident that happened these days around Fonyi, which involves a truck and a gelegele, and 13 people lost their lives. And if you looked at the driver who was driving that vehicle, he doesn't have a driver's license. So I think what we need to do is we should come up with regulations and encourage the police officers to mount checkpoints in areas where they think, either the road is slant or it's curved or so, to be able to avoid road accidents that are happening. Because if you looked at the lives that we are losing, it's increasing. And at the end of the day, if you looked at the number of people that died from road accidents in this country, is too big. And I think
you talked about having police officers at strategic locations, but this is something that is happening now. It's currently happening, but then the road accidents are still rising.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think the police they are working. They are doing very good, and I think they should try to do more. That is by making sure that those areas where sometimes, like when I'm traveling to the provinces, you go a distance before you come.
Now let's just be specific here. You talk about the issue of the license. Some people getting license without even going to driving school. If you were to introduce a law, for example, a private member's bill today in Parliament, what sort of a law will you introduce to ensure that this is regulated?
Well, I think the kind of a law that I will introduce, it's going to be focused or centered on how a driver's license should be issued. I think the manner in which it is issued is the manner that we should change. Because if you looked at the manners in which it is issued now, I think you don't need to be there to be able to get it. Yeah, but if at all we can come up with a regulation that is going to state that if a person wants to get a driver's license, he has to go himself. I think that is going to help, because I think
but what one might say, as we speak, the laws are there, but implementation is the problem.
So we will come up with more regulations that are going to make it stiffer, that are going to make it difficult for a person to get a driver's license. If you looked at our neighboring country in Senegal, they issued driver's license for a period of 5 years. And if you are involved in a road accident, they have something, they punch on it to show that you are faulted. And if at all you do that for 5 times, they will revoke your driver's license and you can't be able to drive. So I think what we need to do is we need to come up with regulations that are going to look into that, because the lives of our people matters a lot. Right, and the death roll, it's really getting higher. And
what will you do to ensure these regulations are implemented or will be implemented?
I think we'll have to revisit. We'll have to revisit the laws that are currently here and see to what extent are they regulating, or to what extent do they provide for how the driver's license should be issued. So they would be able to know either to implement those laws, to take it at national level and make sure those laws are implemented, or we see if at all we can add or subtract from them.
Cost of living?
Cost of living, I think that is alarming, and and I think everybody is feeling it. Those that are up, those that are down, we are all feeling it, because if at all you are responsible, and you have people that go to the market every day, I think you are aware that the cost of living in Ghana is alarming. The reason why we are having this now, I think it's a global thing. If you looked at the world now, we have so many issues. And I think that has also contributed to us having this kind of problem. But I think what should have been done, it's for the president to come up and tell the people that, well, this is not because of government. This is because we have so and so issues globally. That is why the things are going that way. But I think we need to look at our farming system in the Gambia, because we have a vast majority of land. And I think our ground is so fertile that, anything that is cultivated in Gambia, normally it grows well.
But we have seen, even though the president hasn't come out to issue a public statement, but we've been receiving press releases regarding what the government is doing in terms of addressing the hike in price of basic commodities, like removing the tax on rice importation, fuel as well. I mean, millions are being lost by the revenue authority as a result of subsidies.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I think I wanted to come to that, because if you looked at importation of rice in the Gambia, it's free, right? So I think I don't know why is the rice price getting sky high. Because if at all you're not paying anything at our ports, I think definitely we should try to maintain price. But what the buyers will say is where they go to buy it from, it's where the prices are increased. So I think our government cannot do much in that, because if you look at our government, the laws that are regulating it don't specify that our government could do business. And I think I was not here when we have NTC and other corporate or government bodies then, but I think I have made research on them. And I have realized that the reason why in those days you had the NTC was because government thought that most of those businessmen would actually do whatever they want to do because they were importing, the government wasn't involved in all that. So government had to come up with institution that is going to do business and make sure that make sure that those other businessmen wouldn't go beyond what the government actually put for them. So I think if at all that was happening and it has actually impacted on the lives of the people, I think we need to revisit and look at those things and see if at all we could be able to bring them. Then the government could have say, because our government is not a government that is engaged in any form of business, that is importation or exportation. And I think that has been relinquished to the private businessmen who are doing whatever that they think they should do. So I think we need to revisit. We are here to make sure that our people are dignified.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Moch, do you have a different view, or you share the same opinion as?
To some extent. One of the things here maybe we fail to do is Gambians are not engaged in business in this country. Most of the businesses, the important businesses, are controlled by foreigners, which means they don't have any obligation or they don't care about us. What government needs to do is we should have at least banks that could finance actually Gambians small Gambians in the business so that they could compete fairly. But one might say that we have a liberal economy. To me, when you tell me that, I said, where are you from? If I come from India, the government of India, we give him money to go and do business in Gambia at an interest of maybe 3-4%. I, as a Gambian, I would take loan in Gambia to do business in Gambia at the rate of 18%. And you expect us to compete fairly. From the beginning, it's already been rigged. Gambia government should look for how to help Gambian businesses.
Well, Gambian governments to look into ways of helping Gambian businesses. Words of Babukar Mboch, PDS candidate for Banjul Central, and he's here in the studio with Lyndon B. Johnson, who is contesting as an independent candidate. We will now go into the local languages. Mbokingami na siran QTV didn't hamal ne tay mom Banjul Central lañ fi am te kuñ fi am moo nekk ak nga xam ne moo nekk Babukar Mboch moom ngir taxawal li nga ne moo nekk PDS parti ñu bari gën la xamee dooy ak nga xam ne moo nekk Lyndon B. Johnson moom ngir taxaw as an independent candidate. ñeneen ñi nga xam ñu ngi contesté Banjul Central Constituency moo nekk nga xam ne moo nekk Mohamed Ndaw moom nag PPP la taxawal moom nag moo nekk sitting MP Aminata TB Jara moom nag mu ngi taxawal Gambia for All Party, Mamadou Thierno Diallo United Democratic Party, Alhaji Jah independent candidate ak Abdoulaye Ndiaye independent candidate. Waaye si ñii yëpp ñaari ñoo nangoto pour ñëw bokkas li nga ne moo nekk debate bi léegi dinaa indi ki nga xam ne moo nekk Mr. Mbodj léegi mën nañ dem si kàllaama wolof bi rek jos nga waxtaan ak waa Banjul lan moo tax nga géey na pour mun a pour ut toogu pour nekk député pour Banjul Central.
Man Babukar Mbodj di taxaw si turi parti doy may génn pour bokk si jongante bi ñëw samedi pour ngeen tànn ma dem si néegi député yi. lu tax ngeen maruwaa tànn ak kan ngeen war a tànn ak nit ki ban façon nit ngeen war a tànn néegi député yi lim laaj mooy dafa laaj ku mut koo xam ne am na xam-xam bi pare na pour liggéey maccoon na enough pour dem foofu noonu sàmmal leen seen aleel sàmmal leen seen kàddu li ñu am fu mu nekk nii dama gis ne kooku deful liggéey bi parce que su doon def liggéey bi am na yu bari yoo xam ne tudda nañ ko si loo xam ne méngoowuta liggéey bi yow soo demee pour liggéey foofu noonu nit ñi nga war a liggéeyal waaye doo liggéeyal njiiti réew mi soo demee foofu noonu ki nga war a garde su la mayee moto nga jël doo ko garde su la mayee kër nga jël doo ko garde su la joxee brown envelope nga jël doo ko garde ba ñoo lebale xaalis tamit bi ñoo lebale ñoom seen boppa xaalis de ki fa nekk léegi daf si bokka ñun yónni wuñ ko pour mu lebal boppam ñun dañ ko yónni pour mu sàmmal ñu suñ xaalis suñ kàddu ak suñ doole ba ma gisee loolu nag ma gis ne Banjul Central amuñ liñ soxla moo tax ma ne man dinaa bokka si jongante bi bii yoon pour make sure ne su ma fa demee dinaa leen jox ñoom liñ soxla.
am na loo wax just briefly yaa ngi doo wax ne ku fa nekk deful dara boppam la fa nekkal di liggéeyal nguur bi di jël ay loan soo ñu mënee soo ko mënee break down rek loo mi ne mu ngi liggéeyal nguur bi wala mu ngi liggéeyal président bi si ban anam la ko liggéeyal.
non li ñu wax mooy National Assembly bi mu fa nekkee benn tey dégguñ dara oo gisuñ dara loo xam ne firnde na pour wan ne moom moo nit ñi ñoo ànda.
lu mel ni lan nga doon sentu si moom loo xam ne gisuloo ko.
li ñu doon sentu si ñoom man gëm naa ne soo demee ne alali nit ñi ngaa saytu président bi warulaa may ngay war a jël parce que den yow liggéeyuloo nit ñi parce que ki la fa yónni ne la demal nga gàddal ma diw yow nga dem diw boobu may la loolu tey na xel torop parce que man maa la fa yónni pour nga liggéeyal ma constitution bu ees bi man li ma gëm ne constitution bu baax la woon loolu dañ waroon a bàyyi nit ñi ñu jàllale ko mu ñëw si nit ñi ñun ñu seet ndax baax na si ñun ndax baaxut si ñoom moom si ñu rey loolu si la bokk te man ak ñeneen a ñeneen oo nañ ko ne ko jàllale leen lii tax ñun ñu mun a wax suñ kàddu waaye ñoom si ñi nga xam ne si ñu wax déedéet si la bokk.
jërëjëf Mr Mbodj léegi dinaa indi ki nga xam ne moo nekk Lyndon B Johnson Lyndon am nga ñëw wax rek lan moo tax nga génn pour bokk si jogante bi.
asalaamaaleykum wa rahmatulah maa ngi sant seetaankat yi di leen gërëm di wax ne seen boy bi la rek seen MP2 bi la Lyndon B Johnson di wax ne am na solo trop first of all foog naa ne man doomi réew mi la te société loi may na ma doole pour taxaw xeexal suma waago foog naa loolu bokk na si lu tax ma jóg taxaw ne dañ am yoo xam ne i gàtta yoo xam ne gis nañ ko si suñ parliamentarian bu passé si wàllum naka la moo taxawale suñ nit ñi si house bi ñu foog ne taxaw bu mu fa taxawoon baax na waaye ñun dañ gis ne suñ problème si loo xam ne bëggoon nañ mu bokk si réew luwaay réew mi mënuñu ko fa waxal moo tax ñu ne ñu taxaw because ñun tam waa Banjul leen te def nañ suñ studies background check gis nañ ne am nañ problème su bëri yoo xam ne soo leen ñu joxee seen carte suñ fa duggee dinañ make sure yooyu noonu dinañ ko fa waxtaanee te su si yàlla àndee su nekkee lu waa yéen waa Banjul ngeen appreciate ko loolu tax ñu jóg jërëjëf.
waaw dama bëgg a xam rek si li nga lim nii yëpp tey suñ la naroon a fal lan ngay prioritize lan ngaa jiital suñ la naroon a fal tey.
well suñ ma fa fale man lu ma njëkk a jiital mooy def naa suma background check te waxtaan naa ay kilifa yu bëri te gars yi foog nañ ne daal am na loo xam ne ñun waa Banjul def ñu sonal trop mooy ne Banjul tey ñun ñëpp xam nañ ku fa dëkk tey nga ñàkk sa dëkkuwaay problème la di nekk foog nañ ne loolu tax na si loolu tax na ñu bëri génn Banjul tey because tey da ngaa ñàkk sa dëkkuwaay ëllëg doo am foo dëkka so da ngaa gis ne at the end of the day da ngaa génn ñu def suñu xayma bu ndaw nag ne su fekkee ne géemuñ si def dara maybe si next 10 years yu ñëw 15 years yu ñëw ñun ñëpp nañ génn Banjul parce que soo seetee Banjul këri familier fa nekk te tey kër yu ñu jaay tabaxosto at the end of the day ñun xam naa dinañ génn ñu gudda gudda so moo tax ñu ne ñu taxaw ñu make sure ne tam suñ fekkee ne jox nga ñu seen carte suñ duggee si National Assembly bi dina bokk si luñ faa njëkk a yóbbu mooy ne naka la ñoo isee ay loi yoo xam ne dina saama loolu noonu parce que foog naa loi rek a ñu ko mun a jox because tey suñ ko waxtaanee suñ kër yi waxtaanee ko suñu vuy waxtaanee ko suñu offices yi te amul loi yoo xam ne yooyu lañ tëral yoo xam ne dafa ne ku fi jënd kër mun la koo tabastoo foog naa loolu dinañu affect trop ma bëgg nag soo leen ma joxee seen carte su ma duggee si house bi lu ma njëkk a yóbbu foofu noonu mooy loolu noonu su ko defee yéen waa Banjul ngeen mun si yëg seen boppa yéen waa Banjul ñoo xam ne génnoon nañ sax bugg a delluwaat Banjul su ko defee dañ am dëkkuwaay yu doy yoo xam ne ñëpp dinañ mën a delluwaat Banjul
waaye ñu bari dinañ wax ne soo demee Banjul comme ça free hall la nekkul lease hall xam nga lu yaa moom sa kër bu la neexee nga jaay ko ku nekkal kooku su ko jëndee lu ko ne mu samp ko fa
waaw loolu dëgg la loolu moom dëgg bu wér la
te xam nañ ne loo faa sampa kenn la ko dicté ne
xam nañ ne loolu moom dëgg la Banjul ku fa moom kër jaay ko xamal ne da nga am right pour jaay ko waaye ñun askan bu dëkk Banjul dañ foog ne loolu dinañu disadvantage because lu xew Banjul dëkkuwaay la Banjul société si téere yi dëkkuwaay la te tey ñun ñu ngi gis lii di noppi di ko bàyyi muy dem tey mun nañoo jaay Banjul yëpp ñii jënd yëpp def ko store ñu toog bàyyi suñu loxo yi def ko nii rek su ko defee loolu dafaa nekk waaye tey ñun dañ bëgg a pour ñëw ak loo xam ne tey dinañu sowe si luy raam di ñëw si àll bi because Banjul tey société mooy capital city Gambia bi te société tey there are so many infrastructural development ñoo xam ne ñu ngi ko def Banjul te ñun ñu dëkk Banjul ba tey ñun ñu ngi si kontaan bu baax because lu xew tey Banjul foo bëgg a jóg dem dafaa yomba ba because tali nañ dëkk bi yëpp so ñun luñ soxla mooy pour yaatal dañ bugg a yaatal ndax Banjul delluwaatu back those days.
waaye fooguloon tam dafa am solo tam pour ngeen jéem a wéy ci xalaat nit ñi pour ñu mën a xam ne waa Banjul lañ ñu toog defar Banjul balaa ñu jaay seen kër di génn.
exactly foog naa lii nii yëpp nañu jàppale because lu dee xew most of the time mooy ñu bari sooy si ñu ko dee jaay dañ am reason su tagaay di ko jaay waaye soo seetee ñun dañ wax ne du loi yooyu rek la ñoo ici pour ne kenn du fi jaay kër waaye dinañ bugg a pour wax ak institutions yoo xam ne ñoo nekk Banjul for instance am na institutions yoo xam ne ñu ngi Banjul pour council for example suñu amee loi yoo xam ne dafaa ne ku fi jaay kër doo ko mën a tabaxtoo ñu dem ñu engage council bi tam mun na nekk ñoo xam ne ku bugg a jaay kër Banjul jëne ko tabax ko dëkkuwaay foog naa loolu idea boobu leen war a isi ndax nga gis ne suñ effort si council dina ko compliment because li xew
jërëjëf ba am indi fii mbooc léegi ndax nga gisee loi bu mu jéem wax ne pour xañ nit ñi mun a jaay seen kër yi wala yow soo jëndee laan Banjul sax mun loo ko def warehouse ndax nga gisee loi boobu noonu
xam nga affaire yi Banjul yëfi sto ak yi noonu nekkul ne lu nekk rek dañ war a indi loi suñ buggee toppal loi saay bu nekk sooy saxat sax dina am loi naka ngaa war a saxatee Banjul soo gisee nit ñi di jaay seen kër yi dañ màgget nit ñi mënatuñ faa dëkka kër yi dañ xat léegi li ñu war a def mooy am na lu ñoo ooyee council flats BCC social security balaa ñoo dem di jëndi hôtel ay hundreds of millions of dollars mënoon nañ koo dugal si Banjul kër yi nekk Banjul ñu waxtaana ñi moom kër gi famille bi social security dugal fa seen xaalis foofu noonu sampaat kër googu noonu ñooñu dëkk fa li si des ñu ko luyee ba ñoo fay kër gi ñooñu jëlaat seen kër.
ban hôtel la gaa jënd that amount.
Ocean Bay. Okay. So ak yeneen suuf fu ñoo dugal seen xaalis am na lu ñoo woowee tamit UN Habitat mun nañoo ñax nguur gi def an agreement ak waa Banjul.
waaw baala ma rek léegi ñu mun nañu ubbi line si mbokk nga xam ne yéen a seetaan QTV fu mu nekk nii ubbi nañu line si képp koo xam ne bëgg ngaa call especially ñi nga xam ne ñu ngi dëkk Banjul Central Constituency mu ngeen a call léegi pour laajte questions numbers yaa ngi noonu si screen bi well viewers the lines are now open if you want to call especially those living in Banjul Central Constituency you can now call the numbers are there on your screens you can call and ask question to either of these candidates here, that is Babukar Mbouch of PDIS party and Lyndon B. Johnson, independent candidate. Yes, Mr. Mbouch, am na loo doon wax rek balaa nga doon daanal.
waaw yaa li ma doon wax mooy ne ñun xalaat bi ñu war a indi fu mu nekk nii naka la ñoo defee ba nit ñi waa Banjul des Banjul ñi bëgg a des Banjul mooy ne instead of ñuy jaay seen kër yi ñu seet naka la ñoo dimbalee bi nga xam ne dañuy sampaat seen kër yi waaye ñooy moom seen kër yi benn tey.
waaw Lyndon naa la fi indi léegi xam ne wax ngeen lu bari ci li nga xam ne fi ngeen ne ku fa nekk léegi ne sitting MP bi Mohamed Ndaw PPP nekkul di ko def ba loolu moo waral ngeen génn pour bokk si jongante bi pour represent Banjul Central si parlement bi xam nañ naam invite nañ ko nangut a ñëw waroon na fi mën a nekk pour mën a defend si yu bari waaye naa lañ jéem a laaj rek yow what will you point to as exactly. Okay, sorry. I understand there's a caller. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Hello.
Hello, yeah.
Okay, I'm calling from Banjul Central.
Okay, what's your name?
Housekeeping.
All right. What question do you have for the candidates here?
Okay, I want to ask both candidates, how can they help the people of Banjul Central, because Banjul Central is one of the weakest constituency in Banjul. So how can they help us to revive Banjul Central?
Okay.
And right. On the health sector also, how can they help Banjul Central? So I want to know how they are going to do it.
Well.
Or yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Mbouch. You have had that caller says asking how do you intend or what plans do you have to revive Banjul Central and also the issue of the health sector?
am nga man wax naa ko fii maa ngi bokk ci health sector bi parce que dama day indi garab Gambia door naa waxtaan naa sax ba pare ak suma ay naataango ñoo xam ne ñii ay docteur lañ ñii ay nurse lañ Red Cross na si bokka Site Savers na si bokka liñ bëgg a def mooy primary health care parce que dañ gis ne lopitaan bi antanatut ñëpp fu mu nekk nii te Banjul dafa bari mag surtout Banjul Central ñu bari ñu ngi si kër yi seen problème mooy diabetes hypertension oom yu métti ndigalu métti léegi yooyu feebar yooyu noonu ñun pare nañ ci suma programme bokk weer bu nekk man ak groupe boobu noonu ñu ngi dugg si kër yi di seet màgget yi di leen fajee foofu di leen jàngal naka la ñoo dunda ak diabetes naka ngaa dundee ak high blood di jàngal seen njaboot tamit naka ngaa dundee ku am diabetes ak ku am high blood ay oom yu métti bu fekkee ne gis nañ ay feebar yoo xam ne mënuñ la laa dimbale si kër yi foofu noonu dinañ la wax yow nga dem si lopitaan bi loolu dina wàññi lu bari ba pare dina tax nit ñi gën a am wér-gu-yaram Banjul Central.
Yes, Johnson.
jërëjëf ci laajte boobu noonu man lu ma si wax rek mooy ne société health sector Banjul Central ñëpp xam nañ ne fa la lopitaan bi nekk te lopitaan boo xam ne tey ku am emergency foo ko munti amee foofu nga ko dee dawalee ici ñu foog ne am nañ institutions yooyu in place luñ am pour def mooy pour dooleel leen si naka by making sure ne some of the facilities are in there te société am na yenn operations yu bari yoo xam ne doo ko dee mën a defee Gambia ñu seet naka la ñoo mën a essayer operations yooyu ñu ñëw fi ndax su ko defee tey that money boo xaalis boo xam ne moom ngay fay pour dem ba beneen bitim réew pour dem def fa sa yenn health alif ñu nga mun koo defee fii société tamit lan laa foog ne moo gën a am solo mooy government yi dafa war a try pour prioritize mu def having health mu gën a wàññeeku because tey am na ñeneen ñu bari ñu ngi amee seen feebari seen kër yi waaye xaalis sax amuñ ko pour fay ñu foog ne loolu tam am na solo trop ñu seet naka la ñoo wàññee ndax nga gis ne nit ñi suñu amee seen problème si duñ toog seen kër yi waaye dinañ ñëw dawale ut si health center si leena nag Mr Baboucarr wax na ko moo nekk ne dina bugg a def am na loo fi wax loo xam ne waaw primary health care man foog naa ne loolu soo ko seetee Banjul Central ñun dañ fa am loo xam ne mu ngi in place already lu ñu am pour def mooy pour dooleel ko ndax mu mun a dem ndax mu mun a serve the purpose because société at the end of the day soo fi amee primary health care si sax suñu amee emergency te mun koo taxul it has to come back si lopitaan bi so foog naa ne foofu ñu dooleel leen defal leen i bagage moo gën talking about am na beneen laajte bu mu laajte mooy ne Banjul Central is part of the weakest constituencies ma foog ne loolu ñun ñëpp dinañ si wax waaw because lu xew foog nañ ne suñ representative bi to the house has actually not giving us the better representation that we deserve because soo seetee Banjul why it is weak Banjul youth si ñu ngi toog understand am na ñoo xam ne mënuñoo dem school because their parents can't afford to pay their tuition school fees.
Okay. Now let me come in here. ñëpp xam nañ ne soo demee parliament dañ lay dee jox li ñu Constituency Development Fund of $300,000 annually. dama bëgg a xam yéen tey soo ko naroon a jot foo koy dugal.
tey suñ naroon a jot loolu tey loolu dafaa yombal suñu liggéey because funds yi day xool provident fund funds la yoo xam ne yow National Assembly bi moomu la ko. fonds yooyu pour sa constituency la lu ñoo def mooy ñun def nañ suñ sauvé gis nañ xale yu bari yoo xam ne tey boo dañoo dem jàngi waaye seen parents yi either they are of single parent ou seen parents yi sax dundul mënu ñoo dem school ñun ñu ne xale yooyu duñ fa toog noonu di yaaxu nañ jël si xaalis boobu jox leen ko ñu gis jigéen yoo xam ne tey boo dañoo def dara loo xam ne dina mun a jàppale seen i njaboot te gis nañ tamit ne am na jigéen yoo xam ne tey ñooy jigéen yi ñuy nekk si kër bi waaye ñoo amee seen famille naka lañ leen a dimbalee ndax ñu mun a taxaw
300,000 laa wax de.
mais ma xam nga lu xew loolu ñun dinañ ko mun a doxal because xam nga lu tax what is the population in Banjul te that provident fund xam nañ ne du mun a sootil yëpp waaye ñun we want to go and lobby for funds gis nga nit ki su looy nekk da nga koo xam tey.
Brilliant. Already we got the idea how you intend to spend that 300,000.
waa jaalama
waaw no xaaral ba am indi fii Mbodj xam nga time la Mr Mbodj.
ok waa time
300,000 bi soo ko jotee yow foo koy dugal.
xam nga the idea of ñuy jox député xaalis pour man loolu xal naa doy waar tuuti because li ñu war a def mooy dañu war a seet ñan ñoo gën a jege nit ñi ñan ñooy gën a liggéeyal nit ñi mooy yaa ngi am Ward Development Committee bi ñooñu foofu la xaalis bi war a dem parce que ñoom ñoo nekkaan nit ñi directly yow yaa ngi dem pour defal loi pour make sure ne di nga dimbale Ward Development Committee.
So sorry, hold on. We have another caller on the line. Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling us from?
Yes, Banjul lay caller from here.
Wow, Turbi.
Waaw dinaa leb tur bi.
Waaw
maa ngi déglu Mr Mbodj léegi.
Waaw.
ba pare mu ngi wax about not voting for the current incumbent because of position am bi jël ci constitution bi. Man loolu sa tax na man ma ragal moom Mr Mbodj. Although man I was vying for him.
Ban laaj nga am.
Vote against him for that.
Waaw ban
for that.
Waaw ban laaj nga am laajte lañ bëgg a de laajte.
So constitution bi ñëwee how.
Wow, definitely kooku amut lu mu laajte it's more like making commentary. Yes, Mr. Mbodj. 300,000 bi yaa ngi doon ne dafa war a dem si ward committee. Why? Maybe because you are in parliament. Si wala muy mun a jaar pour dem si ward committee.
ñun ñu nekk parliament ñun lañu war a def.
That's your constituency development fund.
Exactly. Yeah, pour lobby pour make sure ne ñi ko war a jot nañ ko. And the best people pour ñu control loolu mooy yaa committee bi yaa ward development yaa committee bi ñu am. Man su doon man la because xaalis bi bariwul bari boo xam ne mun nga koo séddaale yaa ku si nekk am sa wàll xanaa ku nekk ten butus la am.
Yeah, because xam naa ne Banjul Central am ngeen lu ëpp 8,000 registered voters.
Exactly. So waaye suñ ko dugalee si programme soo xam ne dina njëriñ Banjul Central yëpp.
si yenn façon programme.
Exemple man maa ngi wax primary health care suñ ko dugalee foofu ñu jël benn dee boo xam ne dañoo wax site savers mboolem koo xam ne da nga am problème yi bët ñëwal site savers check sa bët yi jox la lunette si free xam nga ne loolu moom delluwaat na si nit ñi te si ñu ko soxla fa la dem so façon ngi programme yooyu loolu lañ war a doon di xalaat instead of ñuy seet naka lañ koo pàccoo.
waaw naka lañ koo pàccoo waaw loolu waxi ndongo la de waaye dinaa indi fii Mr Johnson bu njëkk maa ngi la bëggoon a laajte rek because depuis boo leen dooree amin yéen a ngi wax loo xam ne incumbent bi sitting MP bi defut ko I should fall some Mr Mbodj wax na ne moom he voted against the draft constitution. Someone out there might say even though he had voted against the draft constitution, but he has equally voted in favor of other progressive laws that were enacted in the last legislature. Dama bëgg a xam rek yéen what will you point to as the achievements of the incumbent?
Well, I think the achievement that we could point out is he has been in the House for us for 5 years. And honestly speaking, from my own perspective, I have never seen him say a word in the House for the past 5 years. Right, so I can congratulate him for being a National Assembly member for the past 5 years. That's all. So
are you telling me that's the achievement? That's all you know
that's what I know about
your incumbent?
Exactly.
Mr Mbodj, yow incumbent bi yan achievement am nga gis loo xam ne digga di nga toog ne waaw wax naa lii si moom these are his feelings waaye achieve na lii.
xam nga su ma bëggee wax yëpp dafa mel ni nit ñi dinañ gis ne man dama bias parce que maa ngi ut place am waaye tamit nag soo gisee nit ñi di ut place am dañ gisut lu mu def man day xaw ma keneen de waaye su ma gisoon ne liggéey na comme ni Ousmane si la liggéeyee man damaa ñëw toppa si gannaawam de jàppale ko parce que si li ma nekk man am naa liggéey ba pare waaye soo gisee ma ñëw Banjul Central laa jógee foofu laa xam man lu ma mun a am yàlla Banjul Central.
Well, dama bëggoon a xam rek I mean because so naree hold the role of a National Assembly member yow in the past 5 years la nga doon sentu si moom ne daf ko war a defal waa Banjul Central.
Man li ma doon sentu si moom li gën a tuuti li ma doon sentu ne at least suñooy débéet sax mu bokka si suñoo pencoo réew mi mu bokka si mu ubbi office.
da nga daan toppa National Assembly settings si.
dama fa daan dem sa dem toog. suñoo pencoo réew mi suñoo pàccoo réew mi di ko pencoo mu bokka si at least nga am office boo xam ne nit mun na la faa fekka pour wax la ne lii lañ soxla at least nit ñi léegi-léegi nga am meeting na leen lii laa jógee National Assembly lan ngeen bugg a ma yóbbu fa loolu mooy ndaw li nga xam ne moom lañ doon séentu te ñun ñëpp foog nañ ne loolu fa la war a dooree te loolu moo waroon a nekkal liggéeyam am na yaa ki doon laajte man yaa dégguma laajte bu baax mu ne xëj na sax man la doon sànnil waaye fu mu nekk mu ngi tax ma tiit kooku faraluma parce que man waxuma fi dara loo xam ne war ngaa tax nga wëcc sa xel xam nga li ñu war a bàyyi mooy parlu yàqa réew mi suñ bos la ñun ñëpp dañ war a door di waxante dëgga diw lu mu defut ñu ne kii defu ko lu mu def ñu ne kii def na ko man ñi taxaw ñii ñëpp xam naa leen ki fa nekkoon suma xarit la bu baax a baax kii Mr Johnson xam na si dara Mr Johnson ñu ñëpp a dee toog benn place waaye affaire yi réew la fu mu nekk nii.
waaw léegi dinaa fi indi Johnson I mean yow tey suñu naroon a fal tey in your short term plans what concrete actions do you have or will you like to see?
Well, in the shortest time, I think luma bëgg pour def mooy man yëfi Banjul daf ma ñor dëkkuwaay waaw man dëkkuwaay moom foog mu nekk part of my shortest loolu mooy nekk lu ma njëkk a def pour seet naka la ñoo essayer régulation yoo xam ne dina saama Banjul dina saama alali Banjul because soo seetee Banjul North xam nga damaa wax lii fii nit ñi ñu dëkk Banjul xam nañ lu ma wax Banjul North soo seetee foofu noonu tey in the next 5 years ndax dinañ amati constituency dañ ko war a bàyyi xel bu baax because gis nañ Banjul port bi mu ngi invade port bi am na kër yu bari yu mu jënd ana ñooñu tey looloo tax demarcation bi Banjul Central ñu am pour shift ko because lu xew ñu fa dëkkoon dañ génn so da ngaa gis ne su fekkee ne bàyyuñ xel si loolu Banjul dina nekk place boo xam ne in the nearest future ñu ñëpp a faa génn parce que lu xew
am na loo wax yaa ngi wax about Banjul North constituency.
Banjul South
Banjul South and su yàggee xam nga gars yi nañ ko because of climate change. I mean ñëpp xam ne loolu climate change moo ko dee waral I mean do you have a climate change policy?
déedéet waaye déedéet loolu du defi climate change lu ma wax nii to be specific nekkul climate change laay wax climate change ñu dafa xam nañ ne loolu dafa bokk si loo xam ne is natural right and how to come up with policies it needs to be looked at into waaye lu ñu nekk di wax mooy société Banjul South tey port bi they are expanding the port te am na kër yu bari yoo xam ne ñu ngi fa woon GTTI ñu fa amoon annexe ana GTTI annexe lana fa nekka i containers lañ fa def Muslim High School anamu dem na football field yi foofu noonu de am na ñoo xam ne ñu ne dem na am na ñoo xam ne ñu ne demul so da ngay seet su fekkee ne ñun amuñ luwaas yoo xam ne dina mun a tax loolu du am den ñun dañoo ñàkk
ma tudde am nañ suñ last caller bi hello caller what's your name and where are you calling us from?
Yeah, man maa ngi calling from Banjul.
Okay, tur bi?
Yeah, Bangali la, Bangali Kuyate.
Okay, Bangali. Ban laaj nga bëggoon a def?
Yeah, lu ma bëgg a laaj mooy ne comme daat bi lu mu doon explain noonu comme nit ay ko yeneen project yoo xam ne comme institution yi yu dee mun a jënd.
Hello Bangali.
Yeah, so suñ ko jëndee nii.
Bangali mun ngaa ñëwaat si sa laajte bi dafa mel yaa ngi break.
Am nga dañ ko dee mun a jël. Yeah, sorry for the connection. Yeah, comme lu ma bëgg a wax mooy ne comme dooleel daat bi nii lu ma wax ni comme idea bi pour mun a Banjul mun a delloo te main problème bi.
lan nga bëgg a laaj exactly?
Yeah, mooy comme institute.
Well, we have lost that caller. I mean, we're struggling to understand his question. Yes, Mr.
man fan naa li bëggoon a laajte mooy li ma doon wax ne institution si ñi ma fi mention pour seet naka la ñooñu di waxtaanee ñi moom kër yi ñooñu su ko defee nga xam ne instead of ñuy jaay seen kër yi ñu ko def store institution yi jënd ko sampaat ko nit ñi dëkk fa nga xam ne famille bi ñoo ko moom benn tey nga xam ne within 10-20 years dinañ mën a fay.
Well, maybe already now we have reached to the end of the program, so maybe just 1 minute rek nga def sa closing remark, then after nañ am Johnson tamu def 1 minute closing remark. Time la am nga is 1 hour 30 minutes. So Mr. Mbodj naa start ak yow.
Okay, man suma closing remark bi li ma def mooy li ma wax si mooy am debate pour nga mun a waxtaana ñi laa sànnil karta yow bu fekkee amuloo jot pour ñëw waxtaana ñoom yéen ñi sànni karta wala na am jot pour sànnil leen beneen bi li ma wax mooy ñu bàyyi xel fu mu nekk ñi amul programme ñëpp li ñoo def fu mu nekk mooy dañoo ñëw fekk la nga toog ñu jox la xaalis ñoom xaalis lañ yaakaare ne moom la ñoo winee pare pour jënd sa karta li si gën a doy waar mooy da ngaa fekk mag mu toog nga nata ko ne àddunaam yëpp mu ngi jar $200 ak ñaari paqueti warga $200 boobu ak ñaari paqueti warga boobu noonu moom mu ne yow loolu nga ko jaral pour juróomi at ndax moom mu nekk àjjana si kaw suuf yow nga nekk àllaaxira si kaw suuf soo jëlee xaalis boobu noonu lim la wax mooy at bu nekk li ko sa àdduna jaral ak bu sa njaboot mooy ñeneen $50 ak genn wàlli kaasi warga su gën a xayma loolu
jërëjëf Mr. George 1 minute up bàyyi ma indi fii Johnson.
jërëjëf maa ngi sant waa Banjul di leen gërëm di wax ne kontaan nañ trop te di rafetlu programme bi QCell ici pour ñu mun a toog waxtaan suñu askan bi xam nañ ne luñ fi wax yëpp mënuñ koo implement so la ñu mérité seen carte foog naa carte yi moo gën a am solo te xam naa ne man Johnson mënuma faa duga te amuma carte yoo xam ne yooyu laa require so maa ngi jël opportunité bi pour ñaan leen ngeen saanil ma seen carte ndax su ko defee waxtaan buñ neex buñ fi am ñu mun koo implément ndax waa Banjul mun si yéeg seen boppa di daanelee suma kaddu fii rek ne ñuy génn di joxe xaalis amul programme moo tax gars yi joxe xaalis waaye ñu den gëm ne waa Banjul ewu nen waa Banjul xam nañ kan leen buga te comme di xaalis bu ñu leen mun di jox jël leen ngeen lekka bisu su jotee ngeen saanil the right candidate maa ngi leen a gërëm di leen sant jërë ngeen jëf
jërëjëf Lyndon B Johnson independent candidate Banjul Central constituency ak Baboucarr Mbodj PDOIS as we said, I mean, at the end of the debate, we expect both of you to acknowledge each other with either a handshake or an elbow bump. That's the spirit of this whole debate. I mean, we thank you so much for coming. Well, viewers, I mean, with that, we bring an end to what has been a quite interesting 2 weeks of live debates here on QTV among candidates in different constituencies. In the greater Banjul area. If you have been following, I mean, you will realize that, you know, we have brought you debates from Banjul South constituency, Banjul Central, Banjul North, Bundukakunda constituency, Jos 1, Serekunda West, Talending, Latrikunda, Sana Mentren, Brikama North, Brikama South, Combo East, and Busumbala. Unfortunately, I mean, we couldn't have the Bakau constituency here because, I mean, there are only 2 candidates in Bakau, that is NPP and UDP, and the NPP candidate wasn't available for debate, so we couldn't organize a debate just for one candidate. Well, on behalf of the production team, the entire management and staff of QTV, we thank you so much for always following this debate, and to all the candidates who have availed themselves the opportunity, the time to be on this platform, we thank you so much for coming on QTV. And like I said, I mean, do follow QTV on Saturday from 9 a.m. We'll bring you exclusive election coverage of the parliamentary election in this country, across the country. We will have our reporters across all the country to give us live updates as to whatever is happening across all the polling stations or in the country. Well, on behalf of the production team, I thank you so much for watching. As I said, my name was Alusise. Thank you and bye-bye.